We've gotten 8 classic Disney movies throughout the Silver Age era, which is 1950 to 1967. So let's rank them. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the Movie Ranker, and today I'm going to rank all the Silver Age Disney animated films from 1950 to 1967. We've gotten 8 of them, and these are all classics. They're all loved by most people. And my ranking is not going to be the right ranking. I checked out a few other people's rankings just to see how mine lines up, and it seems like most people have completely different rankings, so that's very cool. So don't be mad if one of your favorites is lower on my list, or one of the ones that's your least favorite is up higher. It all boils down to personal taste. So yeah, I skipped the wartime era. You guys might notice that I did the golden age, and in between the golden age and silver age there was the wartime era, but those are mostly just like anthologies, like a bunch of short animated films put together to make a full-length movie, so not exactly fun to rank. I will do the wartime era if you guys request it. If you guys really want to see it, I will do it, but I'm going to skip it for now and go through the other eras, which are much more fun to rank. So without wasting any more time, let's get into these. So for me personally, coming in the last place at number 8, I have to go with Sleeping Beauty. A lot of people seem to love this one. It didn't do a whole lot for me personally. I do think this has some of the best animation throughout all these films in this era. It's really good. The detail is so freaking fantastic, especially all the wooded area scenes when we go in the woods, the trees, the detail are just insane, as well as like the castle and that. Just so much detail put in to drawing this out, and it's just very well done. And Maleficent makes for an amazing villain. Definitely the standout character in this film. Every time she's on screen, she steals the show. I mean, she's so good, so evil, but so fun to watch at the same time, especially the whole third act where she's using her magic and she's turning into a dragon and whatnot. It's just very exciting and fun to watch. Unfortunately, the rest of the film doesn't do a whole lot for me. I think Aurora, the main girl, Sleeping Beauty herself, is kind of a wooden character. We get everything we need to know about her in the first 5 minutes. How she's beautiful, she sings like a bird, and she has this curse. And we really don't get any more on her than that, than what we learn right from the start. I'm not a fan, like I said, of these characters aside from the villain. They all kind of fall flat to me. I think the songs aren't very good, not very memorable. I have no nostalgia for this film either. This is one of the films I've never seen as a kid or growing up. This was a first time watch, so perhaps that's why it's lower in my ranking as well. Although there are 2 more films on this list that were first time watches, and they're much higher, so nostalgia had nothing to do with those ones there. But yeah, Sleeping Beauty, it has its moments, but overall it just wasn't for me. I couldn't stand the pixies. I found they were kind of annoying, and yeah, just not my movie. Coming up next at number 7, I'm going with Lady and the Tramp. Now, another one that people love, and that's perfectly fine. I thought this one was much better than Sleeping Beauty. I have watched this one as a kid also. Interesting enough, it's like a romance, not my typical type of thing. But it's interesting that they take your typical romance story where you get someone from a higher society and a lower society falling in love, except this time it's dogs instead of people. A nice little twist on a story that we've seen before. Even when this came out, that type of story has been done before, but not quite like this. So I have to give it credit for that. Of course, the whole spaghetti kiss scene is so iconic. Whether you've seen this movie or not, you know what scene I'm talking about, and it's been parodied and tributed in 1,000 other movies. So yeah, this is a pretty good flick. It just boils down to not really being my thing, these romantic type flicks. The music is hit or miss for me as well. The whole Siamese cats scene, I think the song is kind of catchy, even though everything about those cats is really racist. I mean, they give them all the Asian caricatures and stereotypes and everything with the big front teeth and everything. It's god awful. I mean, but this is a product of its time, so you had to put yourself in the shoes of the people who made this back in the 50s or whatever. So yeah, it didn't age well, the cat scenes, but I do like their song they have. But the whole thing at the dog pound with the dogs singing and that didn't work for me. It's a decent film. I enjoy it enough. It's just this romance stuff is just not my cup of tea. So it ranks a little lower on my list. Coming up next at number 6, I'm going with The Sword in the Stone. Now, this is another one that most people have near the bottom of their list. Even me, I have it at number 6. And these bottom three are kind of interchangeable for me. But if I had to choose which movie of the bottom three to watch right now, it would be this one. I felt like it was more my style, a little bit more entertaining to me than the other two flicks, but it is still pretty flawed. I think it probably has the weakest animation out of all these 8 movies. The whole sword in the stone side of the story feels very thin. Like we get it in the first 5 minutes of the movie, just kind of setting things up, and in the last 5 minutes. But we don't really get anything about the kingdom or whatnot throughout the middle of the movie. It's just Wart Arthur getting trained by Merlin in a really odd way. He's changing him into all these animals to teach him lessons, like turn him into a fish and a squirrel and that. Kind of odd. I get that they're trying to tell you that being strong and powerful and whatnot doesn't make you necessarily a great warrior, a great squire. You need education as well. You need your wits, your brain. I like that side of the story. It's just the execution could have been much better because like the whole fish scenes and that does feel kind of out of place and just a little dull at times. But one section of the film that is so fun is the big wizard battle, the sorcerer battle, Merlin versus Madame Mim, I think her name was. Yeah, that was just so fun, them turning into different creatures and whatnot to try to outdo each other. Definitely a highlight of the film, but overall I still think this was pretty fun, pretty good. I was entertained at least, and I wouldn't be mad if I had to watch this film again. It is definitely worth a watch. Coming up next at number 5, I'm going with the classic Cinderella. Now from here on out, these are a huge step in quality for me from 5 to number 1 compared to my bottom 3. These ones definitely stand out much more. And Cinderella is a classic. I used to own this on VHS growing up. And it's funny, these old movies, when you're a kid watching these, you figure that they're fairly new because they're timeless. I would have never guessed this was made in like 1950 when I watched this back in like 94 or 95 when I was growing up. Would have never guessed, but that just proves how timeless these films really are. And yeah, Cinderella, classic, iconic character everybody knows, even if you haven't watched the movie. She's very likable, very sympathetic character. She lives in an abusive family where her stepmother and stepsisters treat her like crap. She's basically their slaves. She has to do all the chores and whatnot. And she just wants to go to this ball. And it's her every right to go. But yeah, her family's trying everything in their power to make sure she stays at home and doesn't get a chance to get out. And you tend to forget that half of this movie isn't really about her going to the ball or whatever. It's more the mice dealing with their cat Lucifer, and just trying to survive with him, and then stealing stuff to make Cinderella's dress for her. And those scenes are really entertaining. I love Gus, the mouse, the new mouse, who's a little chubby and he keeps getting himself into trouble in that. Again, a very sweet, likable character. The songs are fun. The Cinderella, Cinderella, they're all good. That are beepity boppity boop. All of them very iconic, very memorable. A lot of memorable scenes in here, like the fairy godmother and how she turns the big pumpkin into a carriage and whatnot. Very cool. There's only one little plot hole that I never picked up as a kid, but I did pick up as an adult watching it now on rewatch. Was the deal was at 12 o'clock, all the magic goes away. It disappears, right? That means Cinderella's dress, the carriage, everything. But there's one thing that doesn't change back, and that is her silver slipper, her blue slippers or shoes or whatever. Of course, she loses one on the stairs, which is the whole reason why the prince seeks her out, right, in the end. But shouldn't the slipper have disappeared too? Because that was created through magic as well. Little plot hole there, guys. But aside from that, this is a bona fide classic. Of course, it is geared a bit more towards little girls than little boys. I even kind of found that as a kid, but it didn't stop me from enjoying it. And it's just really fun with great iconic characters and iconic songs to go with it. Coming up next at number 4, I'm going with Alice in Wonderland. Now, this one, what it lacks in story, it makes up for in visuals, in entertainment, and it doesn't really matter that it has a very loose story because in the end, this is all in a dream, you know. Alice is dreaming all this, so it doesn't necessarily have to make sense. It's just her curiosity gets her in trouble. It all starts with her chasing that white rabbit into the hole, and she definitely goes down a rabbit hole throughout this film. Again, a lot of iconic moments, whether we're talking about her growing or shrinking with the food that she eats, um, just her encounter with the Queen of Hearts and all the cards. Of course, a Cheshire Cat or whatever you call it. It's kind of psychedelic at times and trippy with his visuals and whatnot in the woods. It has its creepy moments, it has its fun moments, has its bizarre, weird moments with like the Mad Hatter and whatnot. It's just a really fun time. A movie you can turn your brain off and just enjoy for how crazy and silly it gets. There are a few instances that feel like they don't really belong in the movie, like the whole walrus scene. I believe it was a walrus with like the oysters or the clams or whatever. There's a few little scenes, but they're very short. They don't really hurt the movie's flow necessarily. So, yeah, I really dig Alice in Wonderland. It's no wonder why they remade this movie so many times. It's bizarre, but it's charming at the same time. And that's really like the Alice character herself, too. Just her childhood innocence. There's a few movies on this list that really captures that, and this is one of them with Alice and her curiosity and how it gets her in trouble. Reaching my top 3, at number 3, I'm going with 101 Dalmatians. Now, another film I watched as a kid, but I actually watched the 90s live action version a lot more. I remember renting that one quite a bit. So yeah, I seen this one a couple times as a kid, but it's been a while. I definitely forgot about a lot of things. But yeah, a very solid flick. The movie is filled with tension, especially once Cruella de Vil's henchmen and whatever kidnap the dogs. From there on out, with the dogs trying to escape and make it back home and go through the countryside without getting caught, all that is so good, so full of tension. You're scared for these dogs because you know what's going to happen to them if they get caught. I mean, Cruella de Vil is one of the most cruel villains of all time. Obviously, it's even in her name. Like, I mean, this woman wants to skin these dogs to make coats out of them. Like, how messed up is that? And it's funny that it's not really something that kids pick up on when watching this. It's like they kind of know what's going on, but they don't really think about how messed up it really is. But as an adult, you really do. And yeah, it's just such a fun movie, but it definitely has its stakes. I also like the animation in this one, how it was a little more rougher around the edges. I like the tonage and just the shading of like the pencil shading and everything, and just the way things move with shadows and that. It just looks really cool. It stands out from all the Disney movies that came out before this. It has like a little bit different style to it, which I really like. And it's just fun watching all these dogs, and they all have their own little personalities and that, like that one pup that likes watching TV all the time, which comes back to hurt them later when they're trying to escape, but he's watching TV. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's a great little adventure from start to finish, especially the second half when the pups are trying to make it back home. And it's just interesting seeing this world that the dogs live in. It kind of mirrors society with humans, how they have their own system and whatnot, like the whole barking scenes where they're barking across the countryside. They get a message across. They're all kind of working together. Great characters in here too. I like the barnyard animals, like the horse, the cat, and the dog. How there's like a captain, general, and sergeant or whatnot. It's just very fun, and how they call the humans their pets. Like it's kind of how we see them. It's just a really well made movie that I really enjoyed. Reaching my top two, now we're really into the heavy hitters. At number two, I'm going with The Jungle Book. Now, believe it or not, this was a first time watch for me. Of course, I know what The Jungle Book was, I knew what it was, but I just never actually sat down and watched this film. I played, I think it was a Super Nintendo video game way back in the day, but that was about it. And yeah, just a really fun adventure, incredibly entertaining from start to finish with another really thin storyline, but it works in this instance because all the characters really pop. We're watching Mowgli in the jungle. They're trying to get him to his human tribe, but he doesn't really want to go there. He wants to live the life in the jungle. He basically wants to be an animal since he's been living this lifestyle for so long. And it's just interesting that he doesn't really understand the dangers that come with being a child, a human child in the jungle. And, like, he's not scared of the snake or, Shere Khan when he shows up. He's like, his reputation doesn't even phase him. He's basically fearless. But that would have been the one thing to get the kid killed, unfortunately. But yeah, I love Mowgli. He's so innocent and a really likable character. But the most likable character I have ever seen has to be his buddy Baloo. Such a great, awesome character. This bear that teaches him how to fight, and just to be a great friend. I love Baloo, one of the best characters of this whole era of Disney, hands down. One of the best characters out of all Disney, actually, if I think about it. But yeah, just all the different interactions Mowgli has with these characters, from the snake to the monkeys, to the vultures. It's just so fun. Some characters are obviously better than others, but I don't think any of them are real bad or anything. And Shere Khan, he may lack screen time, but he is an awesome, threatening villain. I actually kind of like that we don't see him too much in the first half of the film, but we know of him. He is set up through conversations, dialogue with other characters, explaining how much of a threat he is and how he is the reason why they need to get Mowgli out of here, because he will definitely kill Mowgli. And it seems like all the animals and creatures are scared of Shere Khan. They all fear him. And yeah, he's just a great villain, very intimidating even before you get to meet him. The songs are great as well. Bare Necessities. Wow, what a standout track. And I like all the other songs too, but that one really stood out to me. Like I said, this is a first time watch for me, so I can just imagine for you guys that watch this your whole lives how much you must enjoy this, because I really like this even as an adult. My only little nitpick, I think the ending could have been a bit better with the way they deal with Shere Khan. Um, Strapping like a stick on fire to his tail. Could have been a bit better of a finale with him, but I do like the emotional punch they give you with Baloo. Thank God he survived, but I was sure he was dead. Especially this being a first time watch for me, that was quite a shocker, and it was getting a little bit emotional too. Just goes to show how great of a character he is. But yeah, Jungle Book, wouldn't fault you for having it in first place. It's excellent. But for me, coming in the first place in this ranking, I had to give it to Peter Pan. And this was the other movie that I never seen before. It was a first time watch, believe it or not. This, Jungle Book, and Sleeping Beauty were all first time watches for me. And obviously, nostalgia didn't even affect my ratings for this and for Jungle Book, because they're both at the top of this ranking regardless, even though I've only seen them once. This one just does everything right. It has fun, engaging characters all around, whether you're talking about the good guys or the bad guys with Hook and whatnot. The world building is out of this world. Neverland being this fantasy land that these kids can fly to. It's just so good, so well written, and super engaging. I'm sure a kid would just fall in love with this world. It's very imaginative, which goes along with these kids who stay kids when you're in Neverland. It's so good. And our characters are flawed too. They're not perfect. I mean, of course, these are kids, so they're bound to be flawed. And I think that's what makes them even more relatable. Like in Peter Pan's case, we see that he's kind of a player. He doesn't realize it though, but the way he interacts with all the women of this land, all these girls, he almost treats them as if they're his girlfriends or whatnot. And this causes all the women to be jealous, whether it be the mermaids, Wendy herself, or of course Tinkerbell. She gets extremely jealous as well. So yeah, we're seeing flaws with these characters. They're not all perfect, even though they're the protagonists and whatnot. So I like that about it. And again, touching on the world building, just the whole fact that we get a bit of backstory before the movie, how we learn that Hook lost his hand because a Peter Pan chopped it off and fed it to the crocodile or alligator or whatever it was. And like just learning about all these things throughout this movie, you're like, damn, I almost want to see a prequel to this now. It's that good at building this world, it makes you want to see more. And that's the best thing a movie can do with its world building. But yeah, great characters, great friggin' everything, great animation, great adventure. It's never dull from start to finish. I was hooked into this story right from the get-go. And yeah, I can see why this movie again has been done over so many times. Every 5-6 years it feels like there's a new Peter Pan film. And it all started here, even though this was based off of a play, I believe. But this movie right here really pushed it through the door for all these adaptations to come out afterwards. It's just so good, man. And it's funny too, like that whole scene where Shmi is ends up shaving the bird's ass thinking that it's Hook's face. Like little things like that. There's the perfect amount of humor slipped in here as well. Of course, there's one thing that stands out in a bad way, and that would be the Native Americans in the movie. They're handled in a pretty racist way, but again, it goes back to this film being like 60 or so years old, and at the time it wasn't that bad in society. Of course, things change over time. Not to say it wasn't racist back then, it's just that society didn't view things like that in the same way as we do now. But aside from the whole native scenario, everything else is freaking stellar. Oops, I almost knocked over my camera. And yeah, so Peter Pan easily comes in the first place in this ranking for me. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 8 Silver Age Disney flicks. I hope you enjoyed it. I know my list is not going to be the same as yours because these movies are basically all classics. So everybody's going to have them in different places. And it all depends on what you grew up with and whatnot. So there's a lot of factors going into these rankings, but I hope you enjoyed this video regardless. You can follow me on Letterboxd and Instagram. Links to those are always in the descriptions of my videos, guys. I'll eventually return with the Bronze Age. I think that is next. I can't wait to get to the Renaissance Age because that's the era I really grew up with in the early 90s, right? But yeah, I will continue with this series every once in a while, so stay tuned. Like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future rankings. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.